Hello, welcome to the reformerpilates.com podcast. Today, I'm joined by Torah and Ayo, the powerhouse couple behind Refine Pilates in central London. About a year ago, they made the bold move to take over the very studio where Torah ran classes. In that time, they built a thriving studio with diverse revenue streams from corporate and private requirements. In this episode, we dive into how they've combined Torah's physiotherapy expertise with Ayo's business acumen. How to create smart new revenue streams, expand their audience, and grow sustainably, all while keeping their partnership strong, both in business and in life. If you're thinking about opening a studio, exploring new markets, or just curious how to balance marriage and entrepreneurship, this conversation is packed with insight, innovation, and real talk from two people who are living it. Let's get into it. Great. Hello, Torah, Ayo. Thank you so much for joining us on the reformerpilates.com podcast. We're just going to get straight into it, if that's good with you. And Torah, I'm going to come to you first with a question which we encounter a lot on this podcast. It's something we're always thinking about, helping people take the step, take the leap in terms of running their own studio. I would love to know from your perspective, what was that moment that made you decide to leap from employment into entrepreneurship?
I was actually working full time as a lecturer and also part time as a reformer instructor to keep my skill going on the weekends. And I used to do pop up sessions in London as well. So that seemed to gain a lot of traction. And that was at the studio that I currently own before I owned it. So back then, the former owner of that studio had realized that I was giving her quite a lot of business on the side and things like that. And she was actually considering to sell her business, which included that studio. And so I didn't actually believe her at the time that she was going to sell it. And then she was quite serious and said, yeah, you're one of the candidates that I want to sell it to if you're up for it. And so I just used that opportunity to see if I can get it. To be honest with you, my own 5 year plan was to have a studio within the next 5 years, not as soon as it was now at all. But then it's a once in a lifetime opportunity to get a fully equipped studio to get all the business. And so I just said, I'm going to do everything I can to exhaust all of my options to try and get this business and the studio. And we were successful.
And you mentioned there you were lecturing at the same time. So unpack that a little bit for us. So, what is your academic background and how did that kind of teaching experience influence the way that you wanted to set up your studio?
So I'm a physiotherapist by background, and before I actually got into lecturing, I was working in private, also in the NHS, and a lot of people would say, "Oh, you're great at teaching," and I just used to kind of knock it off. I didn't really believe anything in it, and then again, an opportunity came for the lecturing, so I took that on board, and then I had some other personal circumstances which meant that I had to end that career, and then at the same time, the studio opportunity came up quite shortly afterwards. So it was something that I could grab onto. And in terms of my academic experience, it was very much in terms of making sure that people knew what they were getting into when it came to reformer Pilates, because it can be very much, it is in the social media eye, and there is a certain look to reformer Pilates, which I try to debunk in terms of it can be for anyone and everyone. There's actually a lot of awareness at the moment of people with disabilities doing reform Pilates, which is fantastic. I actually have a client, so I do physiotherapy with reform Pilates. So I try and educate that to people as well, that it's not just fitness based. It was originally used for post-war times. So it was actually used for rehabilitation. So I make sure that I share awareness in terms of combining physiotherapy and reformer Pilates, and also making sure that people know if they have any sort of disability per se, that they can still do it. They're not discounted. I actually have a personal physiotherapy client who has got some issues with her hand in terms of wrist fusion. So her wrists are fused together. So she can't put any weight on her hands at all. We've had a lot of sessions in terms of giving her the independence and understanding of how to use the reformer, so she can go into a class and be like, I can do these exercises, but I just need to do it differently. Just so that everyone knows that reformer Pilates is inclusive, because on social media it can look like it's exclusive.
Great. Thank you. And along that journey that we've asked, what was the point at which you kind of flipped from employment into entrepreneurship? Obviously, there's a important component of that, which is the capital and having available a way to execute that plan, that vision. I'd love to come to you for this perspective as well. When you first started, the funding challenges that you faced and how did you overcome them? Because again, that's something which we hear frequently from others that are aspiring to do exactly what you two have done. So we'd love to get a perspective of how you overcame some of that.
The fact of the matter is the average person doesn't have, 30, 40, 50,000 pounds in their bank account ready to invest in a business and to take the risk of owning a business. So the truth of the fact is majority of people are going to need some form of financial backing or some form of funding to undertake this endeavor. I think there's also a lack of information and knowledge of how to finance a business or a business plan or a business idea or interest. And I feel that for me, it was exciting to go down that route of exploration with Torah in the sense of, well, what does funding this idea look like? And what is, for example, the rate of return? So how quickly can we make this money back? How secure and how safe is it to effectively, for us, it was borrowing money, to borrow this money effectively to run the business and obviously to pay that money back. But yeah, there was various kind of vehicles that we looked at, start a business loan, business loans, even down to speaking to friends and family who are open to invest in it. Obviously our own personal finances and savings, obviously to raise the initial capital.
And Torah, you had the existing relationship there with Refine Pilates and nurtured this from the start with the original owner. Again, what's your perspective, that initial kind of funding challenge to get over when you reflect on it now?
I think for me, it was just having an understanding of what it is that I wanted to do and what I wanted to get out of it. Because before we pitched to any banks or any friends and family, I had to pitch to Ayo. So he wasn't in it. So I had to pitch to him first. And he was asking me, like, what is it that you want to do? What are we trying to do here? So I had to explain to him first. And that was through a lot of conversations with the previous owner, me working there, not full time, but taking jobs here and there and understanding what the studio is, me taking on feedback from clients and understanding the value of it before pitching it then to Ayo. So then we as a couple could then pitch it to family and banks. And with family, I think a lot of people will say, oh, but I know my family doesn't have any money and things like that. But you actually don't know. And even if they don't have money, sometimes family can help in different ways. You don't always have to ask one person to give them all of the money that you need. You could ask separate people. And I think it's really important to not always think it might just be the money. It can just be support. And, logistically, you always need support when it comes to these things anyway. You physically can't do things alone. So for me, I started off making sure that I had a business plan and I wrote out the whole business plan whilst I was still working full time as well to make sure that I actually understood the business that I wanted to purchase. So then we could actually say to our family, this is what we want to do. So just because you have someone that is close proximity to you, don't take that for advantage and just say, oh yeah, I need this amount because I want to buy a studio. No, like what is it? How are you going to get the money back? What staff do you need? What staff do you already have? All these intricate things. Like if you show that professionalism to your family, then you're ready to then show it to a high street bank or any other private loans company that you want to apply to.
Yeah. So looking back, what would you advise, other founders about balancing that financial risk with growth opportunities, particularly in the early stages?
Know your numbers and be confident in your numbers is probably something I'd say. I'm lucky in the sense that I'm an MBA student and I have an infinite group of people around me in business and around that entrepreneurship startup kind of background. So again, I could send the business plan over to various different people who own businesses, invest in businesses. I could run and interrogate the numbers in various different ways to look at various different ratios and figures. But when it comes down to it, it just comes back to knowing your numbers. I'm borrowing this, I'm investing this. I think I could make this at the high end in a year. I think I can make this on the low end in a year. So again, at the same time, when you look back, you're like, well, I know that I can pay this back over a period of time. I'm not saying that it's not going to be challenging, and I'm not saying that the numbers are going to be 100% accurate, because I think we've seen over the years that business is vastly fluctuant. However, what I'm saying is that by knowing your numbers, it gives you confidence in what you need to do to achieve the things that you need to achieve to make your business successful financially. And if you are taking the liability of a loan, whether that be, the startup business loan, or you're going directly to the bank, or even if you're, speaking to friends and family, they're going to help you. Being confident in your numbers also gives them confidence to actually help you.
I'll
And
just add on to that.
please,
Sorry, I'll just
yeah, go on,
say,
Tora.
just don't be afraid to ask questions as well. Find the right people to ask the right questions to. So it's very rare that you're going to have someone who's in Pilates, wellness, healthcare, and also has a very strong business acumen. It's very rare that you get the two together. We're lucky because we're a couple and I have the wellness healthcare aspect and then Ayo has the business side. So it's a great team building in that aspect. But I told Ayo my weaknesses. I was like, I don't know what this means. I don't know what that means. But I had to learn a lot in terms of the entrepreneurship world, the business world. And he also had to ask a lot of questions in terms of what it was like within the healthcare Pilates world. So for someone, let's say, that wants to start a studio and hasn't really jumped into entrepreneurship, just like myself, if you don't have people already in your network that have any business mindset acumen, find someone that does. Get a financial advisor, speak to someone who already has a studio to ask these questions. I spoke to the former owner so many times about how she got the studio, what she wanted to do. Like, don't be afraid to ask questions, otherwise you'll make some very easy mistakes that you could just avoid.
So let's double click into that a little bit then, in terms of some of the lines of revenue. So beyond classes, what revenue streams have you experimented with?
So we, apart from the classes, we also rent the studio out privately. So we can rent the studio out for many different reasons: hen parties, birthday parties. We rent the studio out privately just for one-to-one. So if any instructors want to use the studio for their own events or their own private sessions, just like I did as a consumer, then we offer that still as well. Now that I am a physiotherapist, so that's another added service that we have into the business. So I take on self-paying clients and also any clients that have private healthcare insurance. I'm registered with the private healthcare insurances within this country, the large ones anyway. So we can take those clients on as well. I'm just trying to think, what other services do we have? Those are the main ones that we have in the studio I can think of so far.
We just started to engage with employee benefit organizations. So so where we're based in the city, a lot of people would have some form of employee benefit structure. There was actually some feedback that we took on from one of our clients, where your employer would pay for your gym membership as a tax deductible, and it would just come out of your monthly wage. So it's the same effectively for Pilates classes. We'd offer you a certain amount of classes over the year, and the employer would pay for it wholesale. So they'd pay the yearly fee, and they'd take the money out of your wages on a monthly basis. And that's a really good one, I think, for us as well, because instead of getting, a subscription fee or a package fee, you're now getting a large influx of cash upfront. And yes, there is a pressure to deliver, but then when your clients and customers are already happy with your service, especially when they're existing customers, for them they're just getting a discount effectively, which works for everybody.
I also forgot, sorry, to say that we also have apparel as well. So before, the studio did sell socks, but they weren't branded. And I always thought, if you don't have branded apparel, there isn't really much incentive for the consumer to purchase it or buy it. And I actually saw the massive difference when we started to get apparel and we started to brand our own Pilates socks, bottles, bags, because if people, the consumers, buy into the business and they actually like the studio, they want to take something home with them and then they can actually use it wherever they go. So, for example, the socks have been one of the best terms of streams of income in terms of, getting something else apart from the classes. So we have the branded socks, but we also had different colors. So every time we brought out a new color of socks, the same customer would want to get another color. So they now have a collection of Refine Pilates socks. So it was a nice way, a fun little way for every time they came in, I was like, oh, there's something new. Oh, there's something new. I'll get that as well. So they have the whole collection. So that was a fun little way to add on another stream of income too.
Socks for sure. Everybody I speak to, everybody loves the socks. But I'd love to know of those things, everything from the socks to employee benefit. Which of these revenue streams has had the biggest impact, and I guess which ones have given you some surprise potentially? Let's start there. Which one has had the biggest impact?
Physio.
I would say, yeah, you say physio. Yeah, there's so many ones, but the physio definitely. That was, I think, as soon as we started to announce it, we just got an influx of inquiries, and that is because of the area that the studio is based in. It's very corporate in Liverpool Street area, so a lot of the workers already have some sort of package benefits with their own employer, and it always comes with private healthcare. And so because I'm registered with most of the larger ones, we can accept them. So that's a great one. We've had lots of people come in there. The socks have been a great one as well. And then I would also say using the studio to privately rent as well. So our Saturdays are always highly requested to have some sort of private event in the studio. So we had to put, some things in place to make sure that, if you want the studio, make sure that you book it early, because we'll just get loads of requests and the studio just won't be available. So that's always a good one, because nowadays a lot of, let's say, like the Gen Z consumers don't really want to go out and party anymore. They want to go to a Pilates class. They want to do something a little bit more holistic to celebrate a birthday or a hen party, for example. And where the studio is, it's so commutable and so easy to get to that we get quite a lot of inquiries for that too.
And lots of stuff that you can try, and I'm keen to kind of tap into that specific corporate environment in a moment. But just before, in terms of when you're looking at these different options, how do you evaluate whether a new revenue line is worth pursuing? Do you have a way of testing and evaluating that would be useful for others to know about?
But
you don't want to share it. You don't want to share too much, Ayo.
No, I'm just trying to think of what the process is. I think first of all we discuss it.
Yep.
So anything we want to do is a discussion first. I think for me it's more from the business side, and obviously from Torah it's more from the customers a lot better than I do, and the industry a lot better than I do. So I might have a great business idea that's worked, in corporate or another sector from a marketing background, but then it doesn't apply to this sector. So I think it's discussing that. I think the age-old one that people always discuss is, for example, men's only, right? We ran men's only classes for, I think, a period of 2 months. Got really good traction online. A lot of people were inquiring about it, but financially it wasn't a viable option. Again, we weren't afraid to try it. Put some money behind the marketing and put some time and effort into, making it successful. However, it wasn't successful. So I think also at the same time, and I know this is such a cliche word, but we run things in sprints. So again, if I'm trying an idea, it's got, 8 weeks or 2 months or 1 month or 4 months for it to be successful. If it isn't at that point, and you review along the process, then we're not afraid to pull it, and also explain to customers, why we've pulled it in a wise way. But yeah, for example, with the men's only classes, there were, I think, 1 or 2 or 3 customers that were really, really into it, really interested. And we just said that, unfortunately, it didn't have the uptake that we wanted. Here are some other options for classes. They're mixed classes, or these are some of our quieter classes if you wanted, something that wasn't too busy. Or, for example, you could go for a 1-to-1 option or a 2-to-1 option. And again, you're always going to offer, another service or a similar service to, what they want. However, sometimes just the offerings aren't feasible if it's not beneficial to the organization, to the company.
We also listen to feedback from clients as well, since they're the paying customers. And we're also very open to learning, because we actually thought the men's classes would take off. But then when we came to the women's only classes, we started to get a few inquiries here and there. But we actually thought, well, the majority of our client base is like 90% women anyway. So why do we need a women's only class? Little did we know that there is a whole community of women that actually needs that consistent, that reassurance that there will be no men in the class. If it's down to cultural, faith, circumstances, they need that reassurance, and we weren't aware of that until customers were telling us this. So we tried it, and that just shot off way higher than the men's. We had the women's only. We only had women's only 2 classes 1 day a week, so every Sunday, and they're just booked way in advance. And we got so much great feedback. There aren't many studios that are doing women's only classes, so that was one of the reasons why we were booked way in advance. And I just took it on board. I said, well, you learn something new every day, because I honestly thought the majority of our classes are women anyway, but we didn't know that our clients needed that reassurance because of other personal reasons.
I'd love to double click into the other thing that you've mentioned in terms of obviously your location and that access to the kind of the corporate environment. It's potentially not something that every studio listening to this might be able to access, but I would love to know, how, you've engaged the corporate sector, to position Pilates as a kind of a workplace wellness solution or benefit. Can you share a little bit in terms of how you've engaged that sector?
Go for it, Sarah.
Oh, sorry. Okay. So we have corporate offers. So apart from just the offers that we have for our public, we also have discounted offers for people that are working in businesses nearby. So we normally get email inquiries for that, and they ask for any group classes, and we give them discounts there. And because we know that a lot of corporate places like to do days where they work together. So it might be something that they want to try. And then we also, like I said before, we've partnered with other companies that do discounted rates for the corporate office as well. So there are also other companies that give discounted rates to corporate clients. So very similar to, for example, like ClassPass, that's for the public where you get discounted rates if they join there. We've also partnered with other companies that give discounted rates for corporate clients. So we made sure that whatever discounts we do for the public, is there another version for corporate clients? And most of the time there is. We just have to search for it a little bit more because it's not as open and as obvious compared to the public discounted rates. But we definitely make sure that we look into it. Our clients as well, they're always from corporate areas. So we ask them, does your company want to get involved in any discounted rates? Would they want to do a group class or an event day or something like that? So we make sure that we try and engage with our clients that come standalone. If they want to get their own company involved, then we let them know that we're open to that as well.
I would say it's a blessing and a curse in the sense of we're all very aware that the corporate client might be in some ways the most expectant client. Also have, time limitations. So for example, a lunchtime class has to fall within a certain type of way because they have to get back to work or before work. There's a certain expectation of quality. But the blessing is obviously when you're open to listening to feedback and implementing things that they say that you can apply, the satisfaction level is way higher. The referral level is going to be higher. The recommendation level is going to be higher. They are very much happy to introduce you to their colleagues and their friends and other things. For example, we've had inquiries to come into an office and do some, it wouldn't be reformer, but do some mat Pilates and have, maybe conversations about health and wellness, especially with Torah's background. That's quite helpful. And just engaging with other businesses. I think sometimes the difficulty is obviously you only have one studio, but you have numerous amounts of customers. So if you can go to the customer and they have an office space or whatever it may be, you can take your offering to them if, again, you've already satisfied them as a customer.
And I suppose this is more of a general question, really, but it's one that's popped up on other podcasts that we've done as Pilates as a kind of soft health measure. And I'd be quite interested to know, for your studio, with your location, with your connection into that corporate sector as well, how the recognition of Pilates as more than a fitness solution, but is a tool for well-being, stress management, and productivity. Do you think that is landing in some of the corporate customers that you work with, Torah? Would you say?
I'd say definitely, for sure. I think particularly because we now offer physiotherapy, and it's just getting them to understand that most of my physiotherapy sessions is all about education as well, and getting them to understand why you use the reformer, how it's going to help their issue, not just physically, but also mentally as well. And we also do private one-to-one sessions too. So again, when you get more private sessions, there's a much more opportunity to provide that education, so they don't just come into a group class and feel a little bit rushed sometimes to just get the class and go home. There's a lot more time to have a conversation and discuss. And then, to be honest with you, word of mouth is so powerful. So let's say if we had one corporate client that's had a private session or a physiotherapy session, they're then going to go back into the office and talk about what happened. So, that is quite helpful for us as well, to get them to understand how important it is in terms of just holistic and wellness.
Makes sense. Thank you. I'd love to switch into a different area now and talk about, both of your experiences as founders, right? So again, really getting into the learnings, I suppose, starting with, kind of the biggest personal learning since you founded Refine Pilates, since you both, founded it. I appreciate it was a business beforehand, but that's very much your founding story. I'd love to understand your kind of personal learnings from that.
I would say ask as many questions as you can. Don't be afraid to ask questions, and don't be afraid for things to go wrong, because not everything will go right. If you have a high achiever mindset, that can be quite difficult sometimes to accept, that you want everything to go perfect. But if you're entering a new realm, then it's definitely not always going to be perfect. And, when you have to go through some sort of financial jungle, like getting a loan, that is going to take a lot of energy. So just make sure that you look after yourself in that aspect as well. Whether it's easy or not, it's quite difficult in terms of going to a bank and asking for quite a lot of money, and then giving them the reason why, and that can be a bank or family. So there's that as well, and that also you can't do everything by yourself. You need people. It's not just us two. Before we took on the business, we asked a lot of people, trusted people, for help and guidance and advice within their particular area or expertise. Yeah.
Makes sense. Ayo, maybe coming to you with this next question, which is, how do you think this experience has changed you? Both either professionally and personally. Has it changed you in any way?
Yeah, it definitely has. I think it's given me like a wider respect for health and wellness in a different way. I think, like for me, growing up playing sport competitively from the age of like 8, I kind of really, I've always had a value for sport, but health and wellness is very different. It has similarities, but a lot of differences, to sport. So I think for me, even just being open to going and trying other people's studios, trying different instructors, knowing that like I am a novice, like coming in, not knowing anything, and obviously going through that progression as well. So it's taught me to be open. It's taught me to understand that, I don't know everything and I don't have the answers, and I'm comfortable with that and learned to be comfortable with that. It's also taught me to be confident in the areas that I am confident. For example, spent the better part of the last 2 years on my MBA program. So by having the business, it's allowed me to implement everything from marketing to accounting and finance to kind of HR and how to manage people, and various different aspects of business, which within my career, obviously I've specialized in marketing. I haven't probably used those type of hats, as it were. So it's definitely given me a appreciation, for other people's fields and other people's perspectives, but then also like allowed me to try my hat at it and be like, okay, cool. This is where I can grow. This is what I'm good at. And yeah, I think also at the same time, I would say like it's allowed Torah to see me in my element a bit more. I think when you work in two different sectors and two different spaces, sometimes it's hard to explain. But being able to set up the business in a way, and help with a business report, a business plan, pitching, setting up marketing campaigns, ideas, creatives, websites. Okay, cool. Actually, this is Ayo's strength, and I can also see her strength in the sense of fitness and wellness and everything else.
Great. Torah, same question to you. How's it changed you?
In terms of delegation. And taking breaks. I remember I had to look at me. He was like, "When are you taking a break?" Because I would just keep on going. So I realized now that I pretty much work for myself, like I just cannot do everything. And when you're fully employed under someone else, is different because you have your designated break time and things like that. And I would literally just work into the late hours because you can. And it's very difficult. It's one of the main things I've noticed, and I've heard from other entrepreneurs that because you don't have set hours per se, you can just keep carry on working, which might sound great for the business, but is detrimental to you over a long period of time, which later on then becomes detrimental to the business and your team that you work with. So I really had to work on making sure that I was looking after myself in terms of taking breaks, getting away from the phone once the studio hours were closed. And yeah, and then making sure as well that I'm quite diligent in terms of setting out things and quite being organized. But I think for me, the biggest learning curve was understanding a business and creating a business plan, which was way out of my comfort zone. And it was something that I remember Ayo set me to do. He was like, "Okay, Tora, you're going to make a business plan and you're going to tell me why do we need to buy this business?" So I was like, well, okay, I'm on my own here. So I had to do my own research and make sure that I knew what it is that I was talking about, which sounds very simple. But like I said, when you're not from a business mindset, it can be like in a completely different world. So I really had to get out of my own head and think about all things business, which is very different to me. So looking back from last year to now, there's a massive learning curve in terms of what I understand about businesses. I don't know everything, but there's still a massive learning curve in terms of what I know now compared to what I did before.
So future plans, right? Where do you both see Refine Pilates in the next, let's say, 3 to 5 years? I know that's a fairly broad kind of time horizon, but just give us a sense of where you see it going.
Yeah, I would say go for it.
I was gonna say, like, we'd love to open another studio, somewhere that's a bit more residential. It's quite interesting because when I say it to clients, they tell me where they would like the studio to be, which is pretty much in their area. So it's quite funny. But at the moment, our studio is in a very much corporate area, so we do want to experience the other side of having a business in a more residential area where you can still grow a community, but a different type of community. So that's definitely one thing on the cards.
I would say for me, I think from my experience over the last, I was about to say a year, it hasn't even been a year, but my experience over the last 6 to 8 months is basically just how can I help other people do what we done? In the sense of, like Tora said, like if it's advice of a business plan, just having a Zoom call, whatever it may be, going for a coffee, how can I help your journey be as smooth or if not smoother than my own? That's something that we're looking at. I think for me, also bringing Pilates, whether it be reform or mat, to the masses. So, engaging with membership organizations and hotels and corporate clients to actually come to their venue and deliver in their venue. Is that something that we can do? And I think also it's something that Tora has spoken about, which she didn't mention, is helping train Pilates instructors in softer skills things. So once you've got your qualifications, what will help you be the best version of you? So kind of your USP, how to teach a class, how to work with someone who's new or someone that has disabilities, how to instruct one-to-one versus a group class, playlist, music, all that type of stuff to say that yes, you have your qualification, but how do you build your own client base and how do you build your own persona as you endeavor on this self-employed life of being a Pilates instructor? So definitely it's something that, is not just, everything's not just refined for us. It's how do we also give back to the industry that we operate in to help others as well.
Very interesting. I would love to know as well. Running a business with your partner can be very rewarding. It can be challenging as well, I'd imagine. And I'd love to know how how do you balance the two?
We make sure that we've got set times to talk about work. In the diary, we've got the allocated business update, business meeting. And we try and make sure that if we do talk about work, it's within quote unquote working hours. So it's not late at night. We make sure that we spend time needing to discuss business as business partners, and then when it's time to be husband and wife, we are husband and wife. So we're trying to mix the two together. Sometimes if we go out for a lunch as husband and wife, I like to call it a business lunch. We'll just pitch it around out of nowhere. But generally we try and make sure that we separate the times. I think before it was very much just molding into one. And so we had to say, okay, we have to split things apart. And to be honest with you, it's not just with business. I think it can be anything where you have a new chapter or something new coming in. It can just overtake everything. It literally happened to us when we were getting married. We had to make sure that we just stopped talking about wedding plans and just enjoy each other's company. And it's the same now with a business. When it's time to talk about business, we talk about business. When it's time to be just us two, then we enjoy each other's company there as well.
I would agree with that as well. I think sometimes familiarity makes us feel that we don't need structure. And I feel that sometimes structure can be extremely helpful. Not all the time, but it can be helpful a lot of the time. So again, formalize roles. Like, what are your roles and responsibilities? So when it comes to dealing with customers and the day-to-day run in the studio, that's Torah. When it comes to, uh, doing the books, marketing, growth, sales, that's a lot of the stuff that I would look at. I don't make decisions without communicating with Torah, but at the same time, if it's not done, it's my responsibility. And again, we're accountable to each other in that way. It's obviously very different because I don't work on Refine 100% of the time. So I also have to put in dedicated time to work on the things that I need to deliver for the business to be successful. And I feel that also knowing and understanding each other's strengths that we spoke about earlier, I have to understand that although my idea might sound great, Torah's with customers every single day. So if she says that it's not a good idea, I have to bow out effectively, or maybe ask questions as to how do we maybe adapt the idea for it to work for our customer and client base. So those things I think are really, really key. I feel like as we grow, we have to also be open to the fact that that might change. So again, if we had two studios, then maybe I'd have to spend a bit more time on Refine and, stop doing some of the other stuff I'm doing. And then also just, being able to have open, honest, transparent conversations. Like Tora spoke about it. Like, I could see the fact that she was working too much. So again, it's like, okay, well, how do we alleviate some of this work from you? Is there software and systems that we can put in place? Do I need to take more things on? And being very kind of open around that as well. For example, for us as a studio, we close for like the Christmas New Year period. So there's like a 3-week break, I think, or something like that, which is really, really important, which means that, we can recruit as business owners, and as ourselves as well. And again, then go into the year, with a fresh mindset and have an understanding of what we want to do in 2026. So it's really, really important to have that structure and have that open communication to make it work.
Yeah. So clarity in terms of ownership and roles, some ground rules around timings, although that might be flexible if it seems like that lunch can perfectly turn into a business lunch, as you say, and then continuing open discussion. That's super useful. I have one more question for you both, and I always kind of finish all the podcasts with this, but I'd love to know what have you done in the last week or 10 days which has given you kind of unbridled joy? It can be anything from TV program, something that you did. I would love to know. Who wants to go first?
Has something to do with the studio, actually. So last week, well, the weekend just gone, we had a private group session. And normally with these private group sessions, because you've never met the clients before, you don't really know what to expect. And all I just knew is that I was teaching a beginner's class for a group of private clients. But when they came in, they were just so excited. And because they were so happy and excited, that just sometimes when that happens, it gives you the reminder this is what you're here to do. Never done Pilates before. They came with a massive tripod and a camera set. They came with all of the things. So when it's a private session, they were very polite and they were asking, can we film? Can we do this? I was like, it's your private session. You can do pretty much whatever you want. It's fine. So when I see the excitement with clients that come in and try Reformer for the first time and they film it for themselves, not for our benefit, just for themselves, for their own content, it makes me smile. So that gave me some joy because I was feeling quite tired that day. So they gave me some energy again. So that was quite nice.
Thanks, Torah. Ayo.
I'm still racking my brain. For those who don't know, I am a basketball coach as well. Me and Carl have many conversations about this. I've seen a lot of growth in the teams that I coach. I've got a men's team and I've got under 16 team that's full of year 11s. Just some of the conversations that I have with them about, using sport as a construct for life, determination, resilience, hard work. Just seeing their faces and when you start to see that some of the things that you've spoken about start to set in, it is quite joyful.
Thank you both. Well, look, it's pretty much up to time, and look, I just want to say thank you so much for giving us the benefit of your experience and your journey so far with Refine. What's very clear to me is that this is very much just the start, and I can see so much more that you're going to do together, and in such a harmonious and growth orientated way. It's really got to say super impressive to know you both and hear about what you've done so far, and I'm sure that the future is very bright in terms of wherever you're going to kind of lay your focus on next. So thank you very much. Wish you all the very best and hope we can talk again soon. Thank you.
Cheers. Thank you.